Number 1, what is the best way to look for a job?
The best way to look for a job is to buy a newspaper or to surf the internet and search for an appropriate position.
Number 2, how do you apply for a job?
To apply for a job, you should write your CV and email it to your future employer.
Number 3, which websites do you use to search for a job?
Actually, I've never used any sites, but probably I can ask my husband because recently he was in search for a job and he found it.
Number 4, when is the best time to look for a job?
Well, the best time to look for a job is when you don't have money and you don't have job. So you need to look for a job to get money.
Number 5, when was the last time you were offered a job?
Well, about 2 weeks ago, my friend suggested me to become her drawer, her illustrator for her project, but I don't draw very good, but I will try.
Number 6, what is the next step after having a job interview?
The next step after having a job interview is when you start working for that company, but for some time your salary won't be very high because the company is looking at you and decides whether you suit its requires or not.
Number 7, what is the most amount of people you were interviewed by?
Well, I didn't have a lot of job interviews in my life, so I can't say the amount.
Number 8, why do you think it is difficult to be hired at some companies?
Well, some companies want very qualified workers or they very high demands. So it's difficult to suit them.
Number 9, what types of jobs require candidates to be recruited?
Well, I guess military jobs or maybe some government jobs require some candidates to be recruited.
Number 10, do you think it is easier to land a job or lose a job?
Well, it depends. Sometimes it's easy to land a job and sometimes it's easier to lose a job because some employers don't want their workers to leave them, and they do everything for you not to leave them. Sometimes it's more difficult to be fired.
Number 11, how do you feel when you get a job?
Well, when a person gets a job, he feels enthusiastic, he feels excited because a new period in his life starts.
Number 12, why is it not advisable to work 24/7?
Well, it's not very good to work 24/7 because you get exhausted and you sleep deprived, and without rest, people cannot work very good and for too long.
Number 13, who do you know that works 9 to 5?
Well, actually, it's difficult for me to remember such a person because, for example, my father works from 9 to 1. My brother works from 11 to 7. So different work schedules.
Number 14, who do you know that works as a teacher?
Well, actually, both my grandmothers worked as teachers.
Number 15, what was the last place you worked at?
The last place I worked for somebody was when I was working at a newspaper. I was making black and white pages, but it was a newspaper about cars and it was boring.
Number 16, what was your favorite company to work for?
So my favorite companies to work for were American companies, actually, the Texas Lands Camp and OSCE organization.
Number 17, what types of companies go on strike most often?
Well, I guess mining companies and factories and railway companies, they go on strikes more often.
Number 18. Why do you think it is difficult to run a company?
Well, it's very difficult to run a company because you are in charge for a lot of people. You have a lot of responsibilities, and not every person can run a company.
Number 19. What is the best way to handle a rude customer?
Well, actually, it's very difficult for me to handle a rude customer because, customers are always right. I don't like to deal with rude people. That's why I prefer not to face such rude people. I don't know how would I behave myself in this situation.
Number 20. What is the best way to deal with incompetent workers?
The best way to deal with incompetent workers, I think, is to get rid of them if they don't want to develop, if they don't want to get better. So why do you need such workers?